So, today is a pretty special day today. Not only is it my birthday today, but it also marks the anniversary of Titanic's maiden voyage, which, as you know, started on April 10th, 1912. And I think today is a good day to talk about something that I don't quite see discussed a lot, and that is what really caused the Titanic to sink. Now, we all know the Titanic sideswiped an iceberg badly, and it took almost 3 hours for it to sink to the ocean. But I feel like there's way more to it than just the iceberg. So I went and found as much information as I could about what I believe led to the Titanic sinking. Some information you may already know, but some information you might also not be aware of. So, let's talk about this. Let's first obviously talk about what happened initially. The Titanic was heading from England to New York, but it struck an iceberg during so, and it sank into the ocean. It's simple as that, or so you were likely taught. But it's important to know about what really happened as soon as the Titanic hit the iceberg. The Titanic was claimed to be unsinkable by the masses at the time, and the reason for that being it was made of 16 watertight compartments, and if 4 of them flooded, the ship could still stay afloat. But that is where the problems start, because when the Titanic actually hit the iceberg, it ripped many holes along the hull, and as a result, 6 compartments were actually flooded. And this caused the ship to be too heavy along the bow, which of course is what led to the ship actually sinking down. We can also take this a step further by also discussing other flaws that played a huge part in Titanic's sinking. For example, we can mention the steel used, and the issue here is that the steel used for the Titanic contained high levels of oxygen and sulfur, even for standards at the time. And if you're an expert on that stuff, you will know that this would cause material to form magnesium sulfide with the magnesium in the steel, and this forms microscopic cracks. And combined with oxygen, the steel ends up becoming very brittle, and this is what led to many holes appearing along the hull when the Titanic actually hit the iceberg. Temperature also plays a role in this too, with constant temperature change from the engines leading to the steel becoming weakened, which is what's known as metal fatigue. So, to summarize all that, the material used was more or less Titanic's biggest flaw. And on top of that, we also have user error to blame. Of course, there's the obvious one being that the key to the Cronus binoculars being unavailable, and this was the case because the key's owner, David Blair, got reassigned to a different ship right before Titanic's maiden voyage, but he did not hand over the key. And so this was a domino effect, where the iceberg was spotted way too late at 11:40 p.m., and then they tried to turn the ship, but it was just too late, and it hit the iceberg. And there's other stuff to note as well. Like, for example, there are warnings of icebergs hitting around April 14th, during the morning of April 14th, but Captain Edward Smith disregarded it and instead continued to sail the Titanic at full speed. And also on April 14th, there was a lifeboat schedule planned between 11 to 11:40 p.m., but that was also canceled by Edward Smith. And it's even been speculated that Louis Patton, one of the officer's descendants, that one of the ship's crew members did a wrong turn and the ship headed directly towards the ice. Again, it's just speculation, but that's what I found out. So, to conclude, the Titanic swiped the iceberg, causing 6 of its compartments to flood as a result of bad quality steel and irregular human errors. And those were all roles or factors that played a role in the Titanic sinking. Of course, there are some other factors that aren't as known. I mean, I was not aware of the steel being terrible until a friend of mine told me years ago, as far as I can recall. Of course, practices back in 1912 are way different than what there are now. So, obviously, stuff like this has advanced in order to prevent, people making the same mistakes again. And of course, that stuff is important because, obviously, it's important that we learn from our mistakes so that we don't face any more tragedies like what happened to Titanic. And that pretty much does it for this video. It was relatively quick, but I thought it was pretty important to discuss. Because, again, it's a topic I don't see discussed, like, in real detail. Because, I mean, people just pass off the iceberg and the compartments and that's it. When there's other stuff that I feel like should be known. Thank you for watching.